Hi guys, my name is Crump, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a research project that we did, and the official title is Correlation and Persistence of Hunting and Logging Impacts on Tropical Rainforest Mammals. So we're going to delve into that a little bit today and why mammal conservation is important. So first off, we're going to do a little guessing game. Can anybody tell me what 2% might represent? Any guess is fine. I don't care who answers.
Water.
2% of water? Okay. So 2% of Earth is covered in rainforests because that's a really specific kind of environment. So if you think about it, where are rainforests located? Tropical rainforests. Where is that? Right.
Like in the middle area.
Yeah, in the equator. That's a really specific kind of temperate zone, and so they represent that whole strip of land. Any land that's right there by the equator that's just 2%. Okay? Anybody guess what the 50% is?
Water.
What? Okay, she's gonna keep
The
guessing
Earth's
water.
wildlife
Yes.
in the rainforest.
50% of life on Earth is represented in 2% of our landmass. That's a lot when you compare it to everything else. Okay, so this little bitty environment is supporting half of our life, known life on Earth. Can anybody guess what the next one is? Like the next biggest, like known area is? It's the ocean. So the rainforest beats the ocean in how much life they can support. Anybody guess what the one's for?
One Earth, one world,
No.
one rainforest.
Close. Okay, 1 acre of rainforest is destroyed a second. Okay, so that's for, anybody guess what that's for? How much an acre is? That's about a football field. Like when you're logging, you're taking an acre at a time. So 1 acre per second of all that 2% is destroyed a second. Okay, so the issue, that we explored in this study was that rainforests are the most species-rich ecosystems on Earth. We just represented that in the last slide. And humans really interfere a lot with this kind of environment. And so we wanted to kind of see what our impacts were and if we could solve any of those kind of problems. Okay, so looking at these two pictures, can anybody guess what the two main threats to rainforests are? Just take a guess.
Hunting and logging.
Okay, hunting and logging, you all are right. So logging is indirect in that you're destroying an environment that they live in. You're not really hurting them directly, but you're not giving them help either. And hunting is direct because you're directly impacting that animal by harvesting. That's kind of okay. So mammals are considered high in conservation priority. And although, like, how much of wildlife is in rainforests? 2%. 50%. Okay, so mammals make up less than probably 8% of that. So they're like the lowest of the low in terms of how much is actually in the rainforest, but they're high on the conservation list because they serve a really specific purpose in the rainforest. They keep most of them are predators, and then those that aren't predators are ungulates. If you take animal science, you know those are hoofed animals. So they're keeping species in check by being predators and herbivores, and that's a really specific niche that not a lot of other animals can fulfill. And so the question in our study was, how does hunting and logging affect mammal diversity in this environment, and if one or more affects a species more than the other? And understanding this would really help in conservation practices of these animals. And so this is our official study objective. We wanted to quantify how exploitation individually and jointly affects mammal occurrence and species richness to determine susceptibility. So mammal occurrence just means, do you see a mammal in this environment? And species richness just means how many different species you see at a time. And then susceptibility just determine if they're going to be more affected because of where they are or what type of animal they are. So the study was performed in Malaysia. We went to the other side of the world to see. So Malaysia is right in the equator. It's down here by Indonesia. So this is the island we were on. These are the two states we were in, Sarawak and Sabah. And then our method was we isolated 7 different areas, and they ranged in elevation to reflect different extensions of hunting and logging. So we could see a whole variety of, this has a lot of logging, this has no logging, this has a lot of hunting, this has no hunting. And you can see that in this figure right here. So the black is, let me see here. The black is actually, hang on, let me start with this. Most of these are white, so that's newly logged, and then gray is, it's been logged in the last 10 years, and black means it's really old or unlogged. Okay, so the way we did this was through field sampling, and that just means that we put up a bunch of cameras at the base of trees to catch wildlife, because we're not going to sit there for a long time and watch. So we just had these hooked up to a computer system on all the 7 research areas. We had 135 locations. They stayed there for 2 years, from 2010 to 2012. So we got all of our information in those 2 years. And like I said on the slide before, they were placed at the base of trees. And these are on like potential wildlife movement routes, off trails of people. And so when we got there, we didn't know, if there were going to be anything caught on camera. We didn't know yet. And so, how did the study work out? So 30 different species were observed over 2 years. The correlation coefficients depicted a relationship between hunting and logging and their effects on mammal occurrence. And all that is just science speak for we graphed the data and we found a line of best fit that says there's a connection or there's no connection. So the results. On average, mammal occurrence was reduced in recently logged forests. Does anybody think of why that might be? Logically?
Oh, because it's killing their habitat.
Yeah, if there's no habitat for them to live in, they're not going to be there, if that makes sense. So you're not going to find animals living out in a field if they're used to living in trees. Does that make sense? So obviously you are going to see a negative correlation there. Older logged means it's been about 10 years since that habitat was disturbed, and so it's higher because it's had time to get that habitat back to the way it used to be. So you do see a lot more mammal occurrence in older logged forests and unlogged forests. If there's an environment there, they're going to be there. And then a note that we made was every species was negatively impacted by logging. So the hunting results. So this is a nice little graph that shows days with hunter visits and species richness. So again, species richness just means how many different species you see at a single time, or in a day in this case. And so in older forests, hunting was more of an issue because, again, there's an environment there for animals to be in, so that's going to be a place where hunters can target animals because they are in that environment. Okay, there we go. So hunting was associated with a 30% decrease in mammal richness in all areas, logged, unlogged, and older logged. Now you don't work. Whoa, Lord. Okay, so our overall findings. Hunting is a bigger threat to species who experience both because it's a direct impact. So if you log something, you're taking away that environment, but the animal can still try to live somewhere else. They can adapt to that kind of movement. But hunting, you're harvesting them, that's the end. In recently logged forests, habitat destruction is more responsible. Again, that's because if there's no environment, they're not going to be there. And then in older or unlogged forests, population density is able to recover because there is an environment for them to live in. And that's what these graphs show. So everything down here is a negative trend for a species. Each one of these is a species, one of the 30. And so you can see like in older log forests, we have a little bit of positive because some of them were able to get back to where they need to be because they have a place to live. Newly logged, nobody had any growth because there's no place for them to live. And then hunting at the top, a lot of those were targeted, and so that's why they didn't have any positive growth. Okay, so what does this show? Why is this important? So there are no definite correlations between hunting and logging on a specific species. So the presence of logging doesn't mean there's going to be hunting, or hunting doesn't always mean you're going to log that area. And so this means that conservation strategies that are targeting one of those issues will not solve the other. So most of these species were affected by both, and so if you're only doing logging conservation, it's not going to help those that are getting hunted. So what action should be taken? So different conservation strategies need to be used to control these threats because one's not going to help the other. This also means that a lot of different strategies could be used at once and should be used at once. That way you can maintain the correct mammal abundance in these ecosystems. So why should we take action? So the rainforest is really, really diverse. Like I said, that's 50% of all land on Earth, or all life on Earth, and 2% of land. So conservation is definitely possible while still exploiting those areas. Obviously, we're not going to stop cutting down trees, but we can do it responsibly. And then hunting, like here in the United States, we have, does anybody know what we do in the United States for hunters?
The designated season.
Yes, we have designated season. Most rainforest climates do not have that kind of control over hunting and harvesting. So even conservation things like that can really have a good impact, and you can still get those resources that you need, like lumber and animals for harvesting, but you can still do that responsibly and keep mammals in check. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the presentation?
What was that last little cute animal?
It's a sloth.
Was it? I didn't.
Yes.
Which one?
This one here?
Sloth belly, Joe.
I don't know
Which one?
The one on the left.
This one right here?
No. Yeah.
That is a sloth.
He's not a sloth.
What?
I
It looks
forget
like an
what it is.
armadillo or something.
I know, but it looks
Looks
like a
like a
sloth, but
sloth
he has
and a
like
porcupine.
sticks.
It's an
Something.
anteater.
Oh,
He's
Duh.
not.
It's an
He's
anteater. Oh my gosh, I don't know.
I forget what he is. He's actually like
Aardvark.
a monkey, actually.
What?
Yeah.
No.
That's an anteater. Look at its nose.
No, he's not an anteater. He's a monkey.
I'm good on it.
But like I put these on here just so you all would see like the diversity. Like we have a predator. This is a mountain cat. And then we have this. He's a little monkey weird thing. But he's got these weird things. So I don't really know if he's like a lemur or whatever. And then this is a mouse deer. It's like this tall.
I want one.
So-
I'm about to go get
But
that.
anyway, I just wanted to show you like the different kind of diversity. So does anybody have any other general questions?
I was just gonna ask, like, I don't know if you have the answer to this. Logging, it's a lot different down there, isn't it? Whereas, don't they take everything out? Whereas like here, like, if someone comes and logs your farm, they're gonna leave any trees that it can't be used, they're gonna, like, right. Do they
It
don't do
depends on the
that?
company. Most of those companies are actually like American and European based.
Yeah.
And since they have like, a lot of them now have really high conservation priority because a lot of people are like, we're not going to use your stuff if you don't do this responsibly. So basically what they've decided now is if it's a bigger diameter than I think like a foot, you can take it, but everything under a foot, you leave it.
Okay.
So there are like some trees, but most of them, because it's a rainforest, it's really thick and dense, you're really not going to have that many that's left behind. So it's still not that great, but any other general questions? Okay, that's all I have for you all. Good job.
So I Googled